All right. I thought I was done for the night. In fact, I'm kind of tired. I was going to settle in and watch a movie, but I saw some people saying online in passing that Kamala Harris had went full communist. I didn't know what the hell they were talking about. I mean, I knew she had said things that were communistic, but I didn't know what the controversy was. And then I came across this video, and yeah, I agree. So let's take a listen.
So there's a big difference between equality and equity. Equality suggests, oh, everyone should get the same amount. The problem with that, not everybody's starting out from the same place. So if we're all getting the same amount, but you started out back there and I started out over here, we could get the same amount, but you're still gonna be that far back behind me. It's about giving people the resources and the support they need so that everyone can be on equal footing and then compete on equal footing. Equitable treatment means we all end up at the same place.
Okay. If you can't tell what's wrong with that, you might just be younger, or you might be fully gone. I try to gear my videos towards people who maybe don't necessarily always follow the politics, and it's kind of a philosophical discussion in a lot of ways, but sometimes it's more straightforward. This is one of those things that is the false promise of communism. It frames things in a way that are both inaccurate, but also it promises something that is simply unachievable. And it's kind of funny. The word equality, there's a fight over it. In the United States, equality originally, the concept of equality in basically the U.S. Revolution is that people are equal under the law, and we afford equal opportunity in terms of basically equal barriers, preferably no barriers. Basically, you're not you're not supposed to be denied freedom because of your heritage, because of your nobility, because of your or denied whatever it is, because of because you are who you are. It's all men created equal. And what does that mean? So, all men being created equal is not that all men are created equal. All men are not created equal. And we know this from nature. Some are stronger, some are smarter, some are more fortunate, some are born into better situations, some are born in the absolute worst possible conditions. Sometimes people are born and they just, they're missing arms and legs and stuff. That you can be dealt a really, really bad hand. Men are not created equal. And so, but what does that mean? We that's a tenet, right? Does that mean we seek to make all men equal? No, that's not what it's talking about. What it's talking about is essentially all human beings are inherently equally valuable under the eyes of God. Now, it doesn't talk about God necessarily God by name, but God as a concept. This is there were plenty of our founding fathers who were atheists. So when I'm using God in this concept, what I'm saying is that the inherent respect that is basically you deserve as a person is because you are a human being, and it is basically important that we each respect everybody else, regardless of how equal they are to us, in the same manner, because there's a hierarchy essentially, and you could naturally rank who's fortunate, who's less fortunate, who's richer, who's not, and there will always be a bigger fish than you. And that is not, you cannot run a society where you basically rank people and decide, okay, well, because you're here, you get this, and because you're here, you get treated a different way. That's not how you essentially run a society. That used to be where there was classes of nobles, there was kings, there was royalty, there were peasants, there were, untouchables. The notion in the U.S. Revolution is basically throw that in the garbage everyone is basically everyone is equal in terms of in terms of we're all human beings, and to try to basically parse people based on class or royalty or blood or race is stupid and ineffective. It's not a call to try to make everybody equal. It's a call for equality under the law. You write a law that basically doesn't, that you write a law, it applies to everybody equally. It doesn't apply to, royals differently. Because that's how it was in Britain, the royals, they live by a different set of rules. That's how it's been in society. Society's going millennia back, and the United States, basically, we were one of the first ones to write in stone, no, we are rejecting that idea. Now, the argument is basically, is that the interpretation of equality, or is it the Bernie Sanders interpretation? And Bernie Sanders' interpretation of equality is everyone gets the same amount of stuff. Everybody gets the same, everybody has access to the same healthcare. Everybody has access to the same schools. Everybody has access to the same services or goods. That's what they mean by equality. And the right's done a pretty good job of pushing back against that. Trying to explain basically what equality means basically in an American context, and largely basically throwing the word to the side because it's the most dangerous word in the English language is equality. It's probably the most dangerous word in language is equality, because you can never actually truly have it, and the pursuit of it has led to more death and human suffering than any other concept man has ever come up with. Equality is that dangerous. It's that important that we do not become slaves to it. And what Kamala Harris has done here, she's trying to circumvent the equality argument, because the right has done a good job, essentially, if you dig properly, of coming out and saying this equality stuff is nonsense. It's people are getting very tired of the equality arguments because nobody is ever equal enough. The equality activists always want more. They always want different stuff, and people are kind of getting sick of it. They associate equality with rogue, like for instance, like feminist movements that are saying like, oh, we want equal pay. And then the numbers they've been using have been basically like comparing, 100 hours of man's labor doing a dangerous job that's in a STEM field to 100 hours or less hours, really often, of a female doing something less dangerous, less skill required, less labor intensive, less hours, and then trying to say, well, in the end, the guys have more money than the women do, so therefore that's unequal and that needs to be solved. People are catching on, figuring out that basically that's the shell game. And she starts off with that very much the same, basically saying like, oh, like look at this, like, but she does it even in an even more sinister way. She does it in this is what the Soviets would say about equal opportunity. They would say, well, if you're both being handed the same opportunity, surely that's going to benefit one person more than it's going to benefit another person. And the thing about that is that's actually true. That's true. Somebody with a high IQ and good parents being born in Nigeria does not have the same chance as somebody with a high IQ and good parents born in New York City or Kansas City or the backwoods of Alabama, to be honest, because there's just a major difference there in opportunity, and some of it just comes from just being an American alone, just living in the first world. And that is 100% true, that equality of opportunity does not actually mean equality of start. What if somebody has a disability where it's like a reading disability, right? They might be extremely smart, extremely talented, but if they cannot basically get the help they need to navigate with that disability, which is, again, extra, it doesn't matter what opportunities they're afforded. they're not going to have the same outcome. They've got more adversity. If you're born and your legs don't work, it doesn't matter that you're afforded the same opportunities as somebody who's just like you, but if their legs work and yours don't. It points out kind of the fallacy in terms of like what the way we tend to think about the word equality, and it's the danger of it. So Kamala Harris makes the argument, and she's calling it equity now, but this is what, this is really the communist argument for equality, is that, well, since we all start from different positions, it is our job to make sure, even if you're not starving and destitute and you're not like, mentally handicapped or something where you actually need society's help, we're going to basically afford you the same opportunities, and they're going to act like this person is completely incapable of getting themselves up out of their hole, right? And now they show this, and this is a lot more extreme, and it's kind of dumb because you think like, wait a minute, so shouldn't they both start with the ropes and throw them up? Like, wouldn't that be a better metaphor? Yeah, but it doesn't get the the visuals of the person of color being left behind as the white guy carries climbs the golden rope. So that's why they do that. But what she talks about, she's talking about, okay, well, even if you guys both move up at the same rate and the same amount, somebody starts higher, they're always going to be higher than you. Here's the thing: who says you have to stop climbing? Who says that rope that little safety net or start that you get is all you get in life? That's not what it is. You're given a hand of cards, and your job is to basically take what you've been dealt and turn it into something better. You might have been dealt total garbage. You might have been dealt a royal flush. Some people are born into incredible privilege, but those people piss it away. In fact, more often than people who are able to turn bad hands into really good hands. There just happens to be more of those people. The danger is thinking that you can control the deck. You can control everybody's hand, and that you have the moral, moral superiority to be able to look upon people and decide who is more disadvantaged than somebody else, right? Somebody who is, they'll argue that somebody who's poor and white will has more opportunities than somebody who's rich and black because racism or something, because white privilege. Like, these are the kind of arguments that they pass, and then you very quickly realize that they're not. This is not something. This is political posturing. This is basically interest groups jockeying for more opportunity to prove that they're more downtrodden. It's if you're going to get a longer rope, it's a lot better to appear to be it's the oppression Olympics, right? Whoever gets in this scenario, whoever gets the longer rope is whoever's the more suppressed, right? Or oppressed. So that already is extremely dangerous and extremely twisted. It's the devil's deal, It's you're giving up, you're handing power to people who should not be in the position to be making those decisions. Nobody should be at the top of the hill throwing rocks down at people trying to keep them down. That's for sure. No one should be able to pull somebody up off the rope because of XYZ. But damn it, if that person's climbing, you better let them climb. And nothing should stop them from climbing other than themselves. And some people are better at climbing than others. That's true. There's nothing we can do about that. And, short of basically people who are mentally handicapped or physically unable to actually, provide for themselves, as a government, as a society, we are supposed to be as hands-off as we possibly can. Us people, yeah, we can give somebody a hand up. We can make their rope a little longer. We can go teach them. We can do whatever we need to do to try to help them. But we also need to be bettering ourselves at the same time. And the idea that there's going to be some sort of central authority like Kamala Harris who's going to be able to look down upon the people and decide who's more privileged and who's privileged and who's oppressed and all this kind of stuff. It's crazy and really, really, really dangerous. I mean, Kamala Harris, she's far more privileged than I am, by far, probably more privileged than I'll ever be. But according to her, according to the Oppression Olympics, she's female, she's half black, so she's a minority, and that automatically means that she should be afforded a longer rope than somebody like me, and that's on her own kind of metrics, right? And that's not really fair, but it sounds like a good deal if you're a woman or if you're, in that minority group, until the person who gets in charge and decides to pull the rug out from under you, right? It creates these classes of people, and it's extremely dangerous. Now, here's the worst thing in this video. Normally they stop at that. Normally they say, "Oh, it's just about providing opportunities to people. It's making sure they get what they have a right to," right? That's normally where the argument stops. I should say it's not really where the argument stops, but that's normally where what's presented. That's the healthcare is a right. That's the Bernie Sanders. The oh my God, look how virtuous I am. Those poor black people left in the dust. Even though this guy's perfectly capable of climbing, and if this white dude is a stoner, this guy's gonna eat his lunch. This here is the dangerous part. Equitable treatment means we all end up in the same place. So not only are you arguing that basically you need to be the arbiter and decide that how people get, how people are allotted opportunities artificially by redistributing wealth and power and whatever you got to do as an agent of the government. That's dangerous and crazy enough. But not only that, you're making sure that everybody arrives at the same place. You cannot do that. There is no way to do that. Period. And even if you took the least amount of people possible being essentially elevated above and putting everybody else down, it's not that you can bring up, it's not that this guy is always up at this level. And it's not that this guy always stops at this level. It's whoever gets higher gets their knees cut, and this is basically, it's the ceiling. They show people standing on top of the hills if it's prosperous. What you should be seeing is these people buried under rocks down here somewhere, because you can't. If in the idea the ideas that have everybody end up in the same place, the only way you can do that is by basically knocking as many people down as possible to the same level. And again, it will never be enough. You think Kamala Harris is going to lower herself to to this guy's standard or this guy's standard or my standard of living? You think she's going to do that? Equitable treatment? You think Hugo Chavez was going to do that? He said he was. He said, oh, everybody's going to be elevated and we're going to help the poor, make sure everybody ends up with, we're an oil-rich country, everybody should be living well, right? And what happens? Him and his daughter end up being, gazillionaires while the entire country starves and collapses. Maduro, even if it's just a power gap, because you're an elected official, you then get raised up. It is impossible to have true equity. Basically, in this sense, you can treat everybody the same. You can have equality under the law, which you cannot guarantee is equality of outcome. This is the communist utopia. This is the false promise. This is the this is the dream that is unachievable. This is why the word equality is so dangerous. This is what leads to the genocide. This is what leads to total societal collapse, is saying everybody's got to end up at the same place. And thinking that you can somehow elect moral arbiters who are going to be able to enact that. It's simply, one, it's not possible. Two, it's unbelievably destructive. And this was actually the problem with the French Revolution. And this is a problem France still suffers from. And this is why France is as unstable as it is. And they don't like to admit it, and we don't like to talk about it because, France is our friend and all that. But this here is the liberty, equality, fraternity. This actually is an inherent instability within France. Because liberty, absolutely. Fraternity, That one's a little more vague. It's a little more nationalistic, but at the same time, I understand you should be proud of being France, and you guys should all be working towards a better France. I understand that on a philosophical level, not an essentially a legal, practical level. It's it's the kind of the common defense clause, of our Constitution. I'll give them a pass on fraternity, but equality. You enshrine a word like that, you better make it damn clear what you mean by that. And the French didn't. And what happened is they pulled down the rich and they cut their heads off and they ended up with an emperor. Now, later, after Napoleon fell, they did try to kind of get back to normal. But you got to remember, post World War II, France even had coups and stuff. France is pretty it's pretty unstable, all things considered. They're younger than we are by a significant margin. The French Republic has only been around in its current form for it's less than a century. They're younger than we are, and this is one of the reasons why is this instability with equality. You see that in their refugee policy. You see that in their socialistic tendencies, is they keep trying to achieve this equality that is simply not achievable, and it leads to utter disaster. It leads to, basically just letting in refugees and not thinking for the, and just saying, okay, well, we want to make sure everybody is taken care of and everybody gets, basically equal slices of the pie. And try to lift everybody up to the same standard, and this is the chaos they're dealing with right now. The yellow shirt protests, all that. That's all because of this, because of a fundamental argument they're having within their society about what this word means, and it either is the American definition, and by American I don't mean Americans now. I mean the revolutionary American, as in American, 1776. What they meant by including the word equality in what they were talking about? Or does it mean the modern progressive, essentially Marxist definition, which is that equality means everybody ends up in the same place because you're entitled to it. And this is what Kamala Harris is selling us. She is selling us literally a foreign concept. The idea that a mainstream American candidate could make a video like this and say, equitable treatment and everybody ending up in the same place, the Soviets must be rolling in their graves laughing, because this is their Marxist ideology. That's what this is. And there's no way to sugarcoat it. It's not expansion of the welfare state. It's not the vague arguments about who's getting who needs help from where they start versus for what actually equality of opportunity can be afforded, and how much responsibility we have to afford that equality of opportunity. It's not that argument. It's not the welfare state argument. This is straight up the communist argument. This is basically because if you treat everybody equally, people will inherently end up in different places. That is immoral, and we should make sure that we treat people differently so that they end up in the same place. That's equity. That's equality. This is the paradise. This is the society we want, where everybody ends up in the same place. When we know what that leads to, because we've seen it in the French Revolution, we've seen it in the Soviet Union, we've seen it in Venezuela, we've seen it in Cuba, and it's this word, equality. Equality sounds great if you're on the bottom, because you're like, well, I can't get any poorer, right? So if I'm equal to at least somebody above me, I'll move up. But what happens? It's never upwardly mobile. It usually just pretty much kneecaps everybody except for a few select politicians, a few people in the know. Some people are more equal than others, as Animal Farm would say, or some animals are more equal than other animals. This is Marxist ideology right here infecting mainstream politics, and I hope parents, I hope they show this to their kids, and I hope they say this here needs to be destroyed by the next generation. This would have been unthinkable in 1955. This would have been unthinkable in 1985. And that was at the height of Soviet propaganda. But now it's like the Soviet Union's gone, and this is communism. This is communism. There's no way to sugarcoat it. This is insane. This is the death of the United States if this ideology is what is adopted. Because this is the most dangerous thing we face. Not terrorism, not a massive war with another giant country. We can always overcome that, short of nukes going everywhere, right? But this here, if this infects us, and basically we take up the European communist definition of equality and insert that into our society, where this is our goal, where the American dream is no longer everybody climbing as high as they can and ending up in different places and then passing that torch to their kids. If the goal is to have everybody moving up at the top of, a hill or whatever, everybody moving up at the same time and ending up in the same place, that's not America, and we're lost at that point. We are completely lost at that point, and we might as well just have another revolution, because this can't stand. So I hope you guys get out there Tuesday, and I hope you reject this as hard as possible. I mean, you can only vote so hard, but talk to somebody. Talk to somebody who maybe wasn't otherwise going to vote, and say, look, this is what I see, and this is really dangerous, and I would like to avoid this. So if you would kindly vote for the person who isn't selling us communist propaganda, it would be appreciated. Not that you have to. I mean, I absolutely hate the get out to vote commercials and stuff. They make me want to throw up. They make me want to actually not participate in democracy, because it's unbelievable, the pandering and just the stupidity. And it's like, I got to see, if somebody is not informed and someone doesn't have a good reason to vote, I don't want them voting. I don't want low information voters voting. If you want people to just go out and vote willy-nilly, that means you think the average low information voter is going to vote for you because you're in charge of the culture, which is hence why the Democrats love to push this. And to me, that's a very dishonest tactic. I think that disrespects the voting process by saying we want as many people as possible voting. No, I want as many people as possible engaged and paying attention. What I don't want is people who are uninterested in being engaged, uninterested in paying attention, or simply, they think it's a joke, or they're, communist going out and voting. I don't want that, because I don't want those people to be influencing our society. Democrats, on the other hand, they seem to think that the low information voter, the average Joe who they can just bully into, doing what the cool thing is, whether that's a vote for Obama or vote for crazy Uncle Joe, that's the people they want to come out. This is why fighting in the culture is so important. I used to think it wasn't that important because, facts overcome any sort of cultural relativity, right? No, it doesn't always work that way. And we found that out. We found that out in 2008, and we found that out many times since then. That the culture being dominated by leftists, we never should have surrendered the culture to them. Even if that meant basically backing off, creating our own culture and doing stuff. But you see where this leads. This leads to the cancel culture nonsense. It leads to this being a mainstream thing. And the fact that she can run this and not have every single American who attended public school or any kind of American civics class be absolutely horrified is terrifying. That this is an actual strategy. That this was considered a good idea. Not that communists think it's a good idea, and that terrifies me. Of course not. Communists have shit ideas. That's perfectly... I understand this. I understand the appeal of this. They're wrong. They lost the Cold War because of this. But I understand it. But the fact that a mainstream Democrat politician is going to come out and push this communist nonsense, and people on the left don't seem to even blink an eye. They're saying, what was it, Gaga? Oh, I'm voting for Joe Biden because I'm voting for America, right? Nothing about this is American. This is foreign. This is beyond foreign. This is adversarial to American. So that's my 10 o'clock at night video rant about really disturbing turn of events in terms of campaigning. This is communist propaganda, and to see propaganda actually used as a selling point for your campaign. I mean, my God, this. I hope people are smart enough and engaged enough to see this and go, something smells wrong, and then do the research they need to do to figure out basically the bill of goods they're being sold is the Soviet bill of goods, and it's wrong. It's wrong for the United States. It's wrong for France, and it's definitely, it's wrong for Venezuela. It's not going to work going forward. And if this is the path the Democrats want to go down, there's no other place we're headed other than basically civil war. This will lead to armed conflict, because people are not going to tolerate this who are actual American patriots. They're not. It's going to lead to civil war, because this was a fundamental shift in our belief system. This isn't. We think the poor should be taken care of. We think that the schools should be good, and we think the roads should be paved. These things we generally we don't want people to starve. These are things we all kind of agree on, right? This is a philosophical difference that is completely unreconcilable in the voting booth, because this is not the society the basically Americans consent to live in, and for the people who consent to live under this, they're adversarial to the actual United States entire concept of the United States. So it's weird. I maybe this is to motivate. My only hope is that she has no idea. She's just basically repeating talking points. This will motivate the far left to get out there, because this is basically this is a fool's trick, right? If you've never heard anything of politics before, and then you shown this video, you're going, oh yeah, isn't that wonderful? Isn't that wonderful? Everybody ends up at the same place, and there's a sunset and kumbaya, right? If you don't know anything, maybe that sounds appealing. Maybe this is just to try to grab the low info voter at the last second, right? But if you're somebody who actually cares about the United States, this should disturb you. Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, this should disturb you. And you got to get out there and let them know this is not acceptable. So let's hope the election goes good, because we are in for some painful times if this is what the Democrats are basing their governing style off of, is this false promise.